My friends, have you ever watched a river? It flows without effort, winding its way around rocks, through valleys, never fighting, never forcing. It does not try to be water, it simply is. And in that effortless being, it carves canyons, nourishes forests, and shapes the land itself. Now consider this. How often do you strain, struggle, and strive to control life, to arrange every moment, to force outcomes, to grip reality like a steering wheel, white-knuckled, convinced that if you just try harder, you'll finally get it right? But here's the delicious irony. Real power does not come from control. It begins when you stop. Think of a dancer. If she stiffens, if she clenches her muscles and tries to control every movement, the grace vanishes. The beauty of the dance is in the surrender to the music, to the body's own knowing, to the flow of the moment. Control too much, and you lose the dance entirely. Life is the same way. You are not a puppet master pulling strings. You are a participant in an endless, unfolding dance. The more you relax into it, the more you discover an astonishing truth. Things happen through you, not just because of you. The wind does not try to blow. The sun does not struggle to shine. And yet, what power they wield. When you stop forcing, when you stop insisting that life must bend to your will, something extraordinary happens. You begin to harmonize with it. You become like the bamboo, bending in the storm, but never breaking. You move with life, not against it. This is not passivity. This is not giving up. This is the deep, unshakable power of trust. Trust that you do not need to micromanage the universe to be part of its magic. So take a breath. Unclench your fists. Let go of the illusion that you must control everything to be safe, to be powerful, to be alive. Real power begins when you stop trying to hold the river in your hands and instead learn to swim. And when you do, then you will find yourself carried by currents far wiser than your plans. We exhaust ourselves trying to orchestrate every detail of life, convinced that if we just plan meticulously, push harder, or manipulate circumstances enough, we'll finally secure the outcomes we desire. But this belief is a mirage, one that leaves us perpetually anxious, drained, and at odds with the natural rhythm of existence. Think of how often we approach life like a frantic engineer, obsessively tweaking levers and gears behind the scenes, certain that without our constant intervention, everything will collapse. Yet the truth is far more liberating. Control is an illusion. Life cannot be held in a vise grip. It unfolds organically, like a river finding its path. Rivers don't argue with the terrain. They don't force themselves uphill or resent the rocks that shape their course. They adapt, they flow, and in doing so, they become unstoppable. We, on the other hand, waste immense energy fighting reality, resisting change, obsessing over setbacks, and clinging to rigid expectations as if they were lifelines. But what if the very act of releasing that grip is where true agency begins? Consider the irony. The more we try to control, the smaller our world becomes. Every demand for certainty narrows our experience, like a gardener who only permits one type of flower to grow, fearing the unpredictability of wild blooms. But life is not a spreadsheet to be optimized or a machine to be programmed. It's a living, breathing interplay of chaos and order, and our attempts to sanitize it only distance us from its vitality. The moments we remember most, the spontaneous laughter, the unexpected opportunities, the serendipitous encounters, rarely come from meticulous planning. They arise when we're open, when we've loosened our grip enough to let life surprise us. Now, this isn't to say we should abandon all intention or effort. It's about recognizing the difference between skillful action and futile struggle. A sailor doesn't control the wind, but they can adjust the sails. In the same way, we work with circumstances rather than against them, understanding that our power lies in responsiveness, not dominance. The universe operates on principles far older and wiser than our fleeting agenda. Seasons change, tides shift, and life evolves, not because we will it, but because that's the nature of things. When we stop pretending we're the sole authors of our destiny, we begin to sense a deeper current carrying us, one that doesn't require our white-knuckled effort to keep us afloat. The relentless pursuit of control is at its core a fear of the unknown. We mistake predictability for safety, but life's richest textures are woven from the very uncertainties we resist. Every attempt to micromanage existence is a denial of its fundamental nature, fluid, dynamic, and beautifully uncontrollable. The river doesn't fear the rocks. It embraces them as part of the journey. What might happen if we did the same? We often mistake exertion for effectiveness, believing that power comes from sheer force of will, pushing, striving, and muscling our way through life. But look to nature, and you'll find a different kind of intelligence at work. The bamboo bends in the storm without breaking, the spider weaves its web without calculation, the moon pulls the tides without effort. These are not passive acts, but expressions of a profound harmony with the way things are. Real power moves like water. It doesn't attack the rock, yet over time it shapes the canyon. This effortless way of being is not laziness or resignation. It's the art of aligning with the natural order rather than wrestling against it. Think of a master archer. The perfect shot doesn't come from tense concentration or aggressive force, but from a state of relaxed focus, allowing the arrow to fly as if by itself. In the same way, we are most potent when we stop straining and start trusting. The dancer who thinks too hard about each step loses the rhythm. The singer who clutches for control chokes the song. True mastery arises when we get out of our own way. Modern life conditions us to equate struggle with virtue. But this is a cultural myth, not a universal truth. The sun doesn't labor to rise, yet its light sustains all life. The heart doesn't debate each beat, yet its rhythm never falters. When we release the compulsion to micromanage, we tap into a deeper current of intelligence, one that knows when to act and when to yield, when to speak and when to listen. This is the paradox. By surrendering the illusion of control, we gain access to a far greater power, the kind that moves through us, not just from us. The universe has been unfolding for billions of years without our supervision. What might become possible if we stop trying to steer the river and instead learn to flow with it? The greatest paradox of human existence lies in the discovery that true strength emerges not through resistance, but through surrender. We've been conditioned to believe that power comes from domination, that we must conquer circumstances, overcome nature, and bend reality to our will. Yet the most profound transformations occur when we stop fighting the current and instead learn to navigate its flow. Like a judo master who uses an opponent's momentum rather than opposing it directly, wisdom teaches us that yielding can be the most powerful action of all. This surrender is not defeatism dressed in spiritual clothing. It's a conscious choice to participate with life rather than perpetually struggle against it. Consider how trees grow. They don't force their branches upward through sheer effort, but simply stretch toward the light while allowing their roots to be nourished by the earth. Their strength comes from this dynamic balance between reaching and receiving. In our own lives, we find that the moments of greatest clarity and effectiveness often arrive unexpectedly, when we've released our frantic grasping and simply allowed things to be. The musician doesn't create beauty by controlling each note, but by becoming transparent to the music itself. Our culture celebrates the myth of the solitary hero who bends the world to his will, but this narrative ignores the fundamental truth of our interdependence. Just as no wave exists apart from the ocean, no individual stands separate from the web of existence. When we stop insisting that life conform to our personal demands, we begin to perceive the larger patterns at play. This shift in perspective doesn't diminish our agency. It contextualizes it within a greater whole. The irony is that by releasing our death grip on control, we become far more effective participants in life's unfolding. Our actions gain weight and significance precisely because they're no longer burdened by our desperate need for them to matter. The ancient Chinese philosopher spoke of wu-wei, action through non-action, not as passivity, but as the art of aligning with the fundamental currents of existence. When we observe nature, we see this principle everywhere. The willow bends with the wind rather than opposing it. The heron stands motionless in the stream, allowing fish to come to it. The seasons transition without announcement or fanfare. These are not examples of resignation, but of profound participation in the natural order. In human terms, this manifests as the ability to act decisively without the corrosive tension of forcing outcomes, to engage fully while maintaining an inner stillness. Modern life has conditioned us to believe that louder is stronger, that persistence equals virtue, and that relentless effort guarantees results. Yet some of history's most transformative figures, from Lao Tzu to Einstein, spoke of their greatest insights coming not through strain, but in moments of quiet receptivity. A scientist wrestling with a problem finds the solution arrives during a morning shower. The artist discovers their masterpiece emerges when they stop trying to paint important work. This is the paradox of creative power. It flows most freely when we cease our desperate attempts to channel it. The industrial mindset taught us to see the world as raw material to be shaped by human will. But deeper wisdom recognizes that we are participants in, not masters of, a living universe. When we release our compulsion to control every variable, we begin to notice how life supports our authentic intentions, not through magical intervention, but through the natural confluence of preparation and opportunity. The archer who releases the arrow at just the right moment understands this. There exists a sweet spot where skill meets surrender, where doing becomes being. This is the space where real work gets done, not through our small self-frantic efforts, but through our connection to something far greater working through us. We spend our days clutching at life, like a child squeezing sand. The tighter we grip, the more slips through our fingers. This desperate clinging stems from a fundamental misunderstanding about where true power resides. We've been taught that strength means domination, that control equals security, when in reality our greatest leverage emerges the moment we unclench our fists. Consider how all of nature's most powerful forces operate. Hurricanes don't strain to maintain their rotation. Redwoods don't struggle to reach the sky. Planets don't labor to stay in orbit. Their power comes from perfect alignment with natural laws, not from brute force or conscious effort. Human beings alone among creatures have developed this peculiar habit of resisting reality. We exhaust ourselves trying to hold back tides, reverse seasons, and stop the inevitable march of time. We wage silent wars against aging, against change, against anything that reminds us of our fundamental lack of ultimate control. Yet in those rare moments when we stop fighting, when we collapse into acceptance after years of resistance, we discover an astonishing truth. What we feared would destroy us actually liberates us. The weight we thought we needed to carry was never ours to bear in the first place. This realization transforms our entire way of being in the world. Suddenly, we notice how much energy we've wasted on futile attempts to micromanage existence. We see how our compulsion to control has blinded us to the subtle intelligence already at work in every situation. The way conversations organically find their direction when we stop steering them. How creative solutions emerge when we stop forcing them. How relationships flourish when we stop manipulating them. It's as if life has been waiting patiently for us to stop thrashing about so it can show us what it's capable of. The transition from controller to participant requires courage, not the flashy courage of battle, but the quiet courage to trust in processes larger than ourselves. It means developing the discernment to know when to act and when to allow, when to speak and when to listen, when to push and when to yield. Paradoxically, this surrender makes our actions more potent because they're no longer diluted by anxiety or polluted by desperation. We become like the martial artist who uses an opponent's energy rather than opposing it directly. Our power grows precisely because we've stopped trying so hard to maintain it. So, where does this leave us? Standing at the edge of the river, toes in the water, faced with a choice. Do we keep fighting the current, or do we finally let it carry us? Real power isn't found in the exhaustion of control. It's discovered in the liberation of release. When we stop playing the tyrant over our own lives, we begin to partner with something far wiser. The same intelligence that guides birds to migrate, seeds to sprout, and waves to find the shore. This doesn't mean we do nothing. It means we act differently, not from fear, but from trust. Not as dictators of reality, but as participants in its unfolding. The irony is exquisite. The moment we stop trying to control everything, we find ourselves more powerful than we ever imagined. Not because we've conquered life, but because we've finally joined it.